So today we will build a beginner-friendly bass voice patch. It will not be very complex and it's great for learning the basic patching process and signal flow, but it will still be quite effective and very much usable in your music. I have here an empty instance of Polygrid, right? And we will start with a sound source. In our case, it will be an oscillator, right? We will use the sawtooth module. Now, if I connect it just like this to the output, right, we already get sound. This is not what we want in this case. I would like to sequence this voice and tell it when to play and when not to play. For this, we can use an envelope module. In our case, we will use the ADSR. Now, for those of you who use also hardware modular or something like VCVREC, this module will work a bit differently since we will send the audio itself through it. Right, so I'm taking the saw output, sending it through the envelope to the main output. Right, in Eurorec, usually we will use envelopes as a modulation source to control something like a VCA, to control the amplitude of a signal. And here it's a sort of built-in the module itself, so it's a combination of a VCA and an envelope. So there is no need for a VCA, we just send the oscillator through the envelope itself. And now I can play this voice with my keyboard, for example. I have here the key step. Right, and let's shape the timbre of this voice, its color, with a filter. Let's make space here a bit. Right, there are a few options to choose from. We will go with a Moog style filter. I will just drag it and place it here on the output, and it will just place it in between. Right, so now we have control over the color of this voice, if it's dark, if it's bright, or if it's anything in between. And already let's make a few changes. So first of all, I will remove the key tracking, right? This will disconnect the notes from the filter. Right, key tracking can be very useful at different times, but in this case, I don't really like how it's affecting the sound. Another thing we will do is we will raise the sustain on the envelope all the way up. This will make sure that as long as we are holding a key, the level will stay at maximum. You can already name this amplitude envelope generator, just so we know what is what. Now we can also add some detuning to the oscillator to add nice movement. We can also pan this left and right. Maybe remove a bit of the resonance. And now before we add a variation to the filter, let's thicken the sound a bit more with another oscillator playing an octave lower. Right, for this we will use the sub oscillator module. Right, and we will need a way to mix the oscillators and send them both to the filter. So for this, we can use a mixer. We will just use the mixer module. Right, and again, I will just drag it and place it here on the cable. So now it's connected in between. And then I can mix in also the sub module. Right, so we have now another oscillator that will play an octave lower. Oh yeah. Right, maybe we can use a different wave shape, something like a triangle, for example. And to add even another layer, we can use another oscillator. In this case, we will use the wavetable oscillator. And I will go with a Tundra wavetable, right? Send it also to the mixer. I will solo this for a second just so we can listen to it. Also here we can add detuning. Right, and listen to everything together. Oh, yes. And now let's add more movement to the filter. We will do this in two ways. First of all, we will use another envelope, another ADSR, and we will use it to control the cutoff of the filter. Now I will not use the signal itself, right? I can take the signal, send it to the modulation input of the cutoff. Right, and add modulation. But what we will do, let me disconnect this for a second. And what we will do, we will use the mapping function. You will see also soon enough why, right? So if I click here, the mapping, I can map this basically to everything in the patch. And I will map this to the cutoff. Right, let's take now the sustain a bit down. Again, this envelope will control the filter. So as long as I'm holding a note, the filter will close a bit and maybe shorter decay. Very nice. We can also map this envelope to the index of the wavetable, right, to add even more movement, more punchiness. And we can name this filter envelope generator. So now we know we have one for amplitude and one for the filter. And now to add even more movement and more grit to the sound and character, we will use noise. So noise will be under the random modules here. And usually in patches like this, the noise will be mixed together in the mixer. Right, let's take this down a bit. Right, so usually you will mix the noise together in the mixer, but again, we are not going to use this in this case. Instead, and this is something I do a lot also in hardware, we will use the noise to modulate the cutoff of the filter, mixing in the noise through modulation. And this is why I also didn't send the envelope to the input. Right, so we will take the noise and send it, let me close this for a second, and send it to the modulation CV input of the filter, and listen to this now. Oh yeah. Right, if we go with pink, it will be quite gnarly, which can also be quite nice, but we will stay with the white noise. Add grit through audio rate modulation. Now already we have a nice bass voice. You can experiment with this setup for quite some time using different oscillators, different filters, different envelope times. I created a few more variations of this. If you are interested, I uploaded them to my Patreon page, links in the description. I have here a simple sequence programmed, right, with some drums. Right, something like this. So first of all, we can add sidechaining to the bass with the kick. I have here set up the audio sidechain module. Just activate it. Right, just to add some sidechaining. Listen to this. Right, one more thing we can do is also add a macro controller. Right, so if we do something like this, add a macro controller, right, this will control the filter. Right, so we can map this, let's close the filter all the way and map this to the filter all the way up. Right, but I can also change this to control the decay a bit, the decay of the filter envelope. Oh yeah. Right, add some delay and reverb. I have here the Valhalla delay and supermassive, of course. Very cool. So again, that's it. We have a nice, simple yet very effective bass voice we can experiment with. I will play with this for a bit. If you want to stick around, come join our community on Patreon. Thank you for watching. Cheers.